I want to bring in former spokesperson for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Michael Bociurkiw. He's also the creator of the World Briefing newsletter on Substack. So, Michael, how should President Zelensky approach this meeting with President Trump?
Good to be with you. Well, with the same skepticism that Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada would approach Mr. Trump when it comes to his trade threats, with a lot of skepticism. And of course, you know, this skepticism that Zelensky probably has, and most Ukrainians for sure have, goes back to that first big agreement, the Budapest agreement made in, many years ago, where Ukraine handed over its nuclear arsenal for security guarantees from the US, UK, and others. That wasn't honored. Look where we are now. But the other thing, I have to say is I think Zelensky and the European leaders, the grown-ups who are going to be joining him in the room, have a hard time believing what Mr. Trump says, because he does switch his mind a lot. He has a short attention span. I call him the contortionist in chief for that very reason. So after that Alaska meeting happened, alarm bells sounded off in the European capitals here very loudly that Mr. Trump might get, on that slippery slope to the Kremlin narrative and believing in everything Putin says.
And part of that alarm was for that seeming reversal of where President Trump seemed like the priority was to get a near-term ceasefire, and that's not how the summit ended. Though Witkoff says that's because of concessions they may have gotten. We don't know. We will see. I want to ask you about something you previously said, where you said you were very nervous about tomorrow's meeting, about this meeting with Zelensky. Can you just walk me through why that is?
Sure. Well, for good reason. Look what happened last time. Mr. Zelensky walked into a trap, and just with the contempt, the anger, the rudeness that Mr. Trump and his vice president gave towards Mr. Zelensky, a democratically elected world leader, was very alarming. It does give me quite a bit of confidence that most of the hours spent tomorrow with Mr. Trump will be with these European leaders. I think they're also feeling a little bit of guilt here, because had they given Ukraine everything Ukraine asked for at the start of this war, we wouldn't be where we are today. Most of what they've given took a lot of time and were mostly defensive weapons to start with. And we also have to bear in mind here that we are dealing with a Russia that is not to be believed for anything they agree to. They've broken many agreements, as Mr. Zelensky pointed out in that first Oval Office meeting. But even tonight, the alarm bells, air raid sirens alarm sounded in Odessa. Massive drone attack there. There's damage reported. And also, I'm reading through Ukrainska Pravda, a very respected news outlet, that Kyiv has also been struck by not drones, but a ballistic missile. Again, these are unverified, but it's coming across on the major Ukrainian Telegram channel. So we're talking about World Port Odessa and a integral part of the world food supply chain. We're talking about Kyiv being hit with a ballistic missile, reportedly. What kind of confidence does that give us in believing what Russia is going to do? What kind of confidence do we have in them as a credible potential partner for peace?
And, that dynamic was part of what soured President Trump's trust of Vladimir Putin, whatever trust he had when he first took office, because he was upset that even as there were negotiations toward peace, that Russia was still bombing Kyiv and other locations as well. You've also written about how the U.S.-Russia meeting in Alaska was a victory for Putin. But in your mind, if there is real progress made in the Zelensky and European leaders meeting, will that Alaska summit have been worth it to you, even though it elevated Putin on the world stage?
Look, anything that gets us to not a ceasefire, but a durable peace agreement is worth any effort. But what I worry about, and what we've seen being portrayed in the Russian media in the past 24 hours, is absolutely shocking. And it also put a lot of doubt into the minds of Ukrainians, I think, into what Mr. Trump is all about. To have, as you just repeated, elevated him from the grave of diplomatic isolation to the world stage. I can tell you that monitoring Ukrainian media throughout the weekend, those images of Mr. Putin grinning from ear to ear in the back of the beast, and then also being applauded by Mr. Trump, has done a lot of damage. And I think it's done a lot of damage to America's standing around the world, including in European capitals. I think that contributed to the sound of alarm here in Italy and elsewhere in Europe.
And one of the change dynamics that we're going to see in this coming meeting with Zelensky, as opposed to the last time he came here, this time he'll be alongside those European leaders, some of countries, some representing the EU as well. But what do you think the role of these European leaders will be tomorrow, and what should it be in these meetings?
Sure. Well, put very plainly, to instill the fear of God into Mr. Trump, that to remind him what kind of potential partner for peace he's dealing with, but also that Europe, as much as it wants to back Ukraine, their show of support is very, very important, but Europe is in no position whatsoever at the moment to provide those robust security guarantees. It's got very little ability at the moment to provide the high-tech armaments, Patriot missile systems, drone defense systems that Ukraine needs right now. So I think a big part of the discussions tomorrow will be to convince Mr. Trump that there's no way that he can give up providing military aid to Ukraine, but crucially, Patriot missile defense systems, the sharing of intelligence, which you'll recall was briefly lifted as well, and Mr. Musk's Starlink communication system, which is very, very important to the Ukrainian military. Those are main things right now that can't be replaced. And hopefully they will tell him, because I know he has trouble convincing his base that support for Ukraine is important to America, that eventually Europe can provide more support to Ukraine, more security guarantees, but not at the moment.
And again, that dynamic of security guarantees, it really seems like the bottom line of what many people are looking for to come out of this set of meetings. Michael Bociurkiw, really appreciate the time and perspective. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.